Hi, I'm Mark and welcome back to Three Bridges Model Railway. So if you've seen me before, welcome back, and if you're new to finding the channel, welcome. So I think in episode 4 I sort of gave you an update of where I got to with building the Wendover station. So this is me at the age of 5 on my first ever train journey up to London. So my layout, which I am building after a sort of 45-year break, is going to be inspired by various train journeys and stations that I've taken throughout my whole life. So so I'm starting small with one small board. It's about 1 meter 20 long and 30 centimeters deep, and I am trying out a lot of things on here just to get me back into it. So I'm trying out some basic Scenics, did some of the Metcalf and the scale scenes kits and kit bash, and then I've sort of progressed on to having a go in scratch building my first bridge and a few other things on the layout as well. So if you've seen any of the other earlier episodes, you will know that I started this whole process September 2022, gosh, it's nearly coming up to 18 months ago, where I basically just had a shelf in a cupboard which allowed me to do the layout of Wendover. And I decided, because we were going to move house, I didn't know how big a loft or a garage I would have to build a layout. I would just start doing the building. So I basically been scratch building for the best part of a year and a bit. Earlier 2023, so in about March time, we moved up to Yorkshire to rent whilst we were still trying to find somewhere to buy. And so that's where I then built this sort of structure. So I was able to move away from my shelf to a sort of freestanding structure that I had in a building and a bedroom. So I've got about 2 meters on the top, 30 centimeters deep, and then at the bottom layer it's about 60 centimeters deep. It looks a complete tip. That's a state of my mind at the moment, trying to remember all the bits. Anyway, Wendover's pretty much finished now, so this episode I'll just take you through some of the things I did to finish it off. To complete it, it will now separate from the frame, and it will just be the board, and the board will go up onto a frame in the loft where I've just now started to lay out the full layout. The way I'm going to run my layout is it's in 4 phases. So phase 1 is various stations and the journeys I took between Aylesbury and Marylebone from the age of 5 up to about 23, so quite a long time. And that is a DC layout using a lot of old stock from either my childhood or the sort of stuff that you could get in the 70s and 80s. Later on, sort of phase 2, I'm going to start introducing the London Underground. So I've got some of the original 1939, and I've also managed to get hold of some of the newer just released London Transport 1959, early 60s, the silver stock that I remember running around on. An earlier one I showed you also how to convert the static ones over to a motorised one using the Bachmann spares. So if you have got the static ones and you want to not go down the Shimano motors, which are temperamental, and want something that runs reliably, try checking out that, because you can pick up most of the working parts of these and you just need to change over the body shell. I'm not going to have a fiddle yard on my layout, so everything, all my stock has to earn a place, or else I'll just get rid of it and buy something else. So the layout will be on 3 levels, and so I'm building it effectively one board at a time. So I will work on one board, do all the electrics, track Scenics, the buildings. That then goes up to the loft, and then I'll start on the next one. So yeah, the first one's done, but I'll take you through the steps that have to get to this point, which is a nice relief because I haven't been working on Wendover for 18 months. Most of those buildings were finished, I think, by October 2022, and then I moved on to some later stations. So it's been good to come back to it, see it all come together as I sort of envisaged it in my head a long time ago on a shelf. Yeah, so we're making progress, and I'm really pleased. Signage. So one of the things I've been trying to work out for Wendover is what signage to use. Because obviously the modern blue white is not really appropriate for back in the 60s. So I tried trawling back through lots of old pictures of Wendover, and this one must go back right to the 50s, so you can actually see the underground sign, which does make sense because after the war the underground took over the running of the line out to Aylesbury up until about the late 50s, I think, when they electrified the line out to Amersham, and then it sort of got handed back to BR, who obviously then took it back over, and that's where the blue and yellow DMUs came in. And the way it worked when London Underground owned it is you travelled out on the normal tube, I think, to Rickmansworth or Chalfont, and then you'd have to change over to another train that would then take you out to Aylesbury and under steam, I presume, with the carriages. Anyway, so what I did manage to find, it didn't come out really clearly here, so if I can zoom in a bit, is an old, so this is from the 60s, Amersham, and it's a red and white sign. So based on that, you can see I've made up a load of platform signs and tickets and Wendover station signs in the red and white, and I'll probably use that for some of the other stations along the route. Okay, trying to get a decent shot of this. So on the cafe last time, I had this Fry's chocolate sign. I did actually used to like Fry's chocolate, but it was one that came from the Scale Scenes kit, and it got me thinking about what do I have as advertisements and billboards around the stations that I have from the whole of the layout. I wasn't really interested in using advertisement of common adverts and main companies that maybe other people use that were sort of typical of the time. So with some of the later ones, music is the big thing for me, and so I'm going to have a lot of the adverts will be for albums, bands and artists and that I liked at the time and listened to, so they will sort of depict that era that I was using the station. But obviously when you're 5 music doesn't really mean what to you, and so I had a thought about, well, what else does interest a 5-year-old? And of course the obvious one is sweets. So I've got a few adverts dotted around Wendover for sweets that I liked at the time, including these two. So Old Jamaica from Cadbury's, that sort of rum and raisin-y, and my sherbet dib dabs, which I always loved. So for the farm bridge at the other end of the sort of Aylesbury side of Wendover station, what I had a go at doing to try and Scenics it. So the image you can see on the screen, this is where the M40 cuts through the Chilterns. So the Chilterns is just basically chalk, a lot of it. And so I was trying to get that white sort of cut through weathered look over time. So as you can sort of see, I think this picture's from about 2016, and they cut through, I think, to make the M40 back in the 80s. So you can see that it's sort of weathered over 30 plus years. So that was the sort of feel I was trying to get here, that you could still see some of the white of the chalk, but it had been greening up. So I had to go at 2 different ways of doing it. As you can see, they're quite different. either side. So with this side I use the standard Celtex foam, cut its shape, and then I've sort of wrapped it in this green mesh. What do I mean by that? So what I've done is cover the plaster Paris in this sort of green wadding layer that I've sort of dyed up. So you basically take standard haberdashery wadding, pack out pillows and stuff like that, and you can basically just tease this apart. It's sort of needled together in thin layers, so you can separate it down. So something like that, which is a centimetre thick, it'll probably give you about 10 layers. And then what I've done is just taken some green paint, made up a wash, and dyed some up, leave it to dry, and then it's just sort of stuck on. Put some PVA all over it and stick it on. So that sort of creates the base layer, and then obviously I've used the various scatters on the top, which you can sort of see to give various effects. And then so that was that side, so that's more the traditional way. And then to make the other side, where I was trying to get more of that sort of chalk sort of sculptured lines. So with this side I took sheets of cardboard, corrugated cardboard, and just made them smaller and smaller, so then stacked them up. So there's probably 10 or 15 layers under there, and then wrapped the whole thing again in plaster of Paris cloth, let it dry, left it white, and then obviously I've coloured up with some paint and done some scatters again. So two different approaches. Again, the whole point of this part of the layout was to try out different methods for doing the scenics and sort of learning basically. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with how they've both come out. They do have different effects. I think more if I'm doing more landscaping, I'd go for the cloth approach and probably paint the underneath brown first. But let's did that. So I'm pleased to say the bridge is all now glued up, joined from both sides, and I've also wired in some lights underneath and attached the red struts on either side. I sort of mentioned the last one, I didn't really know what they were for. I think it's Johnny Croft 3906 pointed out that they would used to then weld plates to the underneath of the bridges to deflect the smoke and soot as the steam engines passed underneath. And I did find that you could buy the little plates to glue to the underneath of your bridge and you can buy the plates to glue to the inside of your bridge from Westhill Wagon Works. So if you're into prototypical steam engine bridges, then check out their little plates that you glue to the underside. So for the lighting, I've followed basically all the advice that Jeff at Pride Parkway gives. He does a brilliant episode on how to do 3-volt lighting, so you don't need any resistors for the lights, and he basically uses one of these Pifco DC power adapters, sticks it on the 3 volts. He also buys the largest one, it's done the same, so 2250 milliamps, which will allow you to run about 120 LED lights off that one power pack. So it's all wired in underneath. As I say, if you've not done it ever before and you're not sure how to, check out Jeff's video. He goes through it in great detail and it's really helpful advice, and I was able to follow it pretty clearly. And also just got a small switch at the moment that you can see the effect, and then if I kill the lights, you can see the sort of the nighttime run. So I've got obviously 3 lights on the platforms, and then I've put a couple of lights in the bridge, and then 1 in the station. I think it's showing it. Decided not to go overboard with the station. just so that some parts of the station actually looked in darkness, which they would be, and obviously more importantly as well with the cafe, I've not bothered to light it, as it was only ever open in the mornings. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon it was shut, so it wouldn't be open in the evenings. So I suppose it's also a good point to talk about the back of the scene. So the vault's 30 centimetres deep, but in the final layout in the loft it's going to be 50 to 60 centimetres deep, because I need to run 4 lines coming up behind it, and they're going up to the next deck. So about the time you get to Wendover, the line should be about halfway up, and so I don't want the lines to look like they're part of Wendover, so I may leave this sort of blue in as almost like a scenic break between the two parts of the layout. Normally here at Wendover there was a small wall coming down, and then it was all just trees and bushes with housing behind. There was the pub at the end, which I may include in the final version if I've got the space for it, as my wife's grandpa used to play dominoes there with his mates every Thursday and have a pint and a pie. So as you can see, I've managed to paint up the rest of the green trying DMU in the BR blue with the other carriages and the roofs, and do all the wheels. Quite pleased with the final outcome of it. It just sort of feels better suited to this one than the green that we had before, so I'll do the other units as well, but I'm still going to look out for the so it's a good place to end up. On the Scenic side is this new car I've got. So this is a Hillman Minx from the 50s and 60s. So my parents owned one of these. It's the first car I remember driving around in. Don't remember an awful lot of it because we moved to Singapore when I was 5 and they had to sell it then. But as you can see the picture on the screen, it's red and sort of off-white. The one we had, so I'll paint that up. But yeah, I was really pleased to sort of find my parents' first car that I remember. So made by Lesney, not a name I've heard of, but it probably means something to more people. Sadly no glazing in it, but anyway, that's fine. And obviously my dodgy builders can now leave and head off to the next station, Amersham, to wreak havoc. Although so far they haven't really caused many problems at Amersham, but I think I might get them to build the car park for me and we'll see what happens. Okay, so I think the last bit of the Scenics was the coal yard, so I'm going to have this as like a local coal merchant who's sort of taken up that space where the siding used to be. So I still need to get one of those little old-fashioned 60s coal wagons. I'm sort of looking out for one. I'm sure one will crop up, and get some on the little bags. So to make the coal itself, I've basically made there's another name for these, I can't remember it. It'll come back. So I've got 2 grades. So I've got some of this. So this is coconut shell activated carbon. It's you use it in the filters and fish tanks, and the size it comes, if you look in focus, works out about the size of a man's head, lumps of coal which you would get on the steam train. But obviously the household coal that they then bag up and sell is a bit finer, so I've sort of blended up some through just an old blender to make a finer dust, and so I've got 2 grades. I think that was enough for what I was trying to do, and obviously tried to just dirty up the general area, and started having a go at doing some of the sort of chain link fencing, making it some old mesh on the posts. So when I was a kid back in the 70s, fencing was just sort of advisory. It's not like fencing today where everything's you can't go anywhere without fencing. So the classic sort of 3-strand wire fencing was everywhere around the railways. It didn't stop you trespassing or getting through. And I lived on an RAF camp, and there was no fencing at all to stop you going anywhere. I went all over the camp, and like today, where it's all razor wire and guards and high fences, no access. So I'm going to make a bit more of the fencing in the gates. These were never closed at Wendover, which leads me on to the tale of the lost children. Okay, so the tale of the lost children. So this is actually after I came back from Singapore, so I'm about 7 or 8, and we lived up on Holton on a place called Tedder Road, and you just had a large playing field behind us, and then the children would, so we could just as kids roam for hours on end wherever we liked. Great fun. And one day we probably went for lunch, and all the kids were asked by their parents if they'd seen 2 small children. So they were about 3 and 4, 2 girls. They'd gone missing. So obviously the normal assumption was they were probably just out playing, because there was so much area for us to play in. So we all went out and had a look, and then obviously probably after 20 minutes gave up, carried on playing ourselves. Later discovered that evening they were both found safe and well. So they had left the camp. They'd walked about a mile down into Wendover, so down a busy road, all the way up the high street, past people, and they were found playing in the coal yard at the railway station. So I've put a couple of little kids in my scene, playing hide and seek in amongst the coal bunkers, which is where they were found, in the coal yard at the railway station, safe and healthy, and probably just covered in a lot of black coal dust, but very happy. Anyway, another time, I suppose. Hi, so that about wraps it up for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly had a lot of fun finishing off Wendover and showing you all the stuff I've been doing. And thanks for the people who sort of commented on the last few episodes that I've released. I appreciate they were quite diverse in sort of their topics and content as I sort of work out how to put this whole thing together. But I am enjoying it and having great fun. A couple of people who had made comments were also saying they themselves are building a layout, and so some of the comments I was making, they were sort of similar thoughts and ideas that are going through them. So I was thinking there's been it feels like model railways had quite a negative start to the year with various things, and the only bright person I sort of saw was Graham from Lakeside, who I appreciate is health-wise is not in a happy place at the moment. I do hope it all works out for him pretty soon. He's back, but he was the robust voice of don't be daft, this is a great hobby, and there's lots of people and diversity and interest in it. So, and I 100% agree with what Graham was saying it is. So one thought I did have for myself, what could I do as well to help? I know sharing these videos, we all watch each other's and learn techniques and stuff. But a couple of comments I got, I don't get a lot, okay, because it's a new channel, was from people who are building their own first layout. And it's a big thing to try and do a YouTube channel, and I appreciate it's not for everybody to do it. But I would be quite interested to see, if you are building something new, send me a picture of it. So through below you should be able to see my email address, which is just for this channel. If you want to send me an image or two and a short description of what you're building and doing, I'd be really interested to see it. So and if you're happy for it, I'm quite happy to share it on this platform with a wider audience. I was sort of building Wendover and being like thinking back to being 5 has made me think an awful lot about what I did at that age. And one of the things I loved at that age was Vision On and Tony Hart. So anybody else in the world who has no idea what I'm talking about, this is an arts programme for children made by the BBC back in the 70s. And as part of it, they had this thing called the gallery, and they would show children's work for different age groups. And it inspires you that you could have a go. And this is all about inspiring people to have a go as well. So if you want to share some images of your layout that you're building or something you've made or done, please do, and I'll happily include them on this channel. Anyway, that's a thought. If nobody wants to, don't have to. If you're watching this in a year's time and you want to do it, please still send them, because we're going to live in this house for about 10 years. I'm estimating this layout is going to take me 6 to 8 years to build. Okay, so I'm not going away. I wrote a list of 16 episodes, so I have got ideas to make and film which will take me way up to the summer. So I'm quite happy that I'll keep going and I'll keep producing these for myself to document. So yeah, if you want to share with me, I'd be really pleased to see what you're also doing. Anyway, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll catch you next time. Cheers.